Calaroga Shark Media.
From Washington, D.C., where stealing $30 million isn't that big a deal, this is Ballot.
That's right. Some smiley-looking folks oopsied some money. Let's free them. So President Trump just announced he's pardoning Todd and Julie Chrisley, the reality TV stars who were serving time for tax evasion and bank fraud. You know, the couple from Chrisley Knows Best, which in retrospect, maybe they should have called it Chrisley Knows Best How to Hide Money. Trump made the announcement during a phone call with their daughter Savannah, telling her your parents are going to be free and clean. Clean? That's an interesting word choice for people convicted of financial crimes. But hey, nothing says presidential priorities like a reality TV intervention. Now, Todd was sentenced to 12 years, and Julie got 7 years for conspiring to defraud banks out of $36 million in loans. $36 million. That's not, oops, I forgot to carry the one money. That's, let's buy a small country money. The White House says this is about giving well-deserving Americans a second chance who were unfairly targeted by an unjust justice system, which is a fascinating way to describe people who were convicted by a jury of their peers for stealing millions of dollars. But I suppose when you're used to calling every prosecution a witch hunt, eventually everyone starts looking like they're being burned at the stake. Savannah Chrisley had been lobbying for this pardon, even speaking at the Republican National Convention about it. She had lunch at the White House in February, which must have been awkward. Pass the salt. And also, could you maybe spring my parents from federal prison? The family's attorney says this corrects a deep injustice. A deep injustice. You know what's a deep injustice? When regular people can't get loans because banks are busy getting scammed by reality TV stars. But sure, let's focus on the real victims here. So, President Trump is now claiming that Canada is considering becoming the 51st state in exchange for free access to his Golden Dome missile defense system, which of course they're not. Trump posted on Truth Social that he told Canada they could get the Golden Dome protection for $0 if they become our cherished 51st state, but it'll cost them $61 billion if they stay independent. That's quite the sales pitch. Hey, Canada, you can either pay us $61 billion or just give up your entire national identity. Your choice. My question for Trump is, if Canada becomes one big gigantic state, or will each province become a state, which would add 20 senators and siphon off a lot of representatives from the lower 48? Actually, if we connect the 48 and Alaska via Canada, do we just have the 50 and that other state out there in the Pacific? We're going to need some new language around all this. Now, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has repeatedly said that Canada is not for sale ever. But Trump's response was essentially never say never, which sounds less like diplomacy and more like something you'd hear from a guy trying to sell you a used car with questionable mileage. The timing here is perfect because King Charles III just visited Canada and gave a speech to Parliament, basically telling them to stay Canadian. When the King of England is having to remind Canada not to sell itself to America, you know we've entered some truly bizarre territory. Trump's Golden Dome system is supposed to cost $175 billion to build and be fully operational within 3 years, which, given the government's track record on large projects, means it'll probably cost $300 billion and be ready sometime around 2035. The whole thing reads like Trump saw Canada's universal healthcare and thought, you know what? I bet I can get them to trade that for some satellites. It's the international equivalent of offering to trade your lunch money for someone's entire lunch. But sure, Canada's totally considering it. Right after they finish considering changing their national anthem to Sweet Caroline and replacing maple syrup with ranch dressing.
What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is accused of some of the most serious crimes imaginable? Check out the new podcast, Did He Do It? Following the federal sex crimes trial of Sean Diddy Combs, coming to you straight from New York City. Every day I'll take you inside the courtroom where prosecutors say Combs ran a criminal enterprise of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse, using his fame, fortune, and influence to silence victims and control lives. We'll cover the big stories and the small moments that can shift the verdict. The trial has begun. The questions are piling up, and every day we'll be asking the same thing. Did he do it? Follow now wherever you get your podcasts.
Tired of doom scrolling? Want news that won't make you want to live in a bunker? Check out 5 Good News Stories, where they find the silver lining in a world that's usually lined with something much less pleasant. The gang at 5 Good News Stories dig through the headlines to find 5 stories that prove humanity hasn't completely lost its mind. It's pretty much the opposite of this show. From scientific breakthroughs nobody's talking about to random acts of kindness that restore your faith in humanity, all delivered with the cutting wit you deserve. 5 Good News Stories, because sometimes the news doesn't have to suck. Subscribe to 5 Good News Stories wherever you get your podcasts. So the rumor mill has been working overtime with conspiracy theories about why President Trump is going after Harvard University. The theory? That his son Barron got rejected and now daddy's getting revenge. But Melania Trump's people came out swinging, saying Barron never even applied to Harvard in the first place. But here's what actually happened. Barron Trump, who's 19 and just finished his freshman year at NYU's business school, apparently had his pick of colleges. His father said he got accepted to a lot of schools, but chose not to follow in dad's footsteps at Wharton. Meanwhile, Trump's administration has been treating Harvard like it owes them money, freezing their funding and revoking their ability to enroll international students unless they meet a list of White House demands. Harvard, by the way, has a $50 billion endowment and only accepts 4% of applicants. They're not exactly hurting for students or cash. The irony here is that while none of Trump's kids went to Harvard, his son-in-law Jared Kushner did attend. Of course, it probably didn't hurt that Jared's father made a $2.5 million donation that year. Nothing says merit-based admission like a multi-million-dollar check with your application. Portions of today's show were made with the help of AI, the Golden Dome, and definitely not Harvard.
You know the silhouette, the squint, the voice that cuts like a blade. Clint Eastwood isn't just a movie star. He's a myth, a mayor, a cultural fault line, and maybe the last great American icon. Eastwood Reloaded tells his story one chapter at a time. The hits, the flops, the chaos between the scenes. Because legends aren't born, they're built. Eastwood Reloaded. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.